If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. You are listening to the Columbine Conspiracy Series. This is episode 11, Anomalies. We will examine bizarre oddities in the comings and goings before, during, and after April 20th, 1999 in Columbine, Colorado, in what is probably the most infamous school shooting in history. Why are there so many eyewitness reports that do not match the official narrative? Why are there seemingly so many individuals, not Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, that seem to be involved in all this strange activity, involving duffel bags, involving explosions at nearby parks, involving all of these bizarre oddities and anomalies that the official narrative cannot explain? Why do so many coincidence theorists avoid like the plague the actual documentation released with all of these people, many of them adults, faculty, teachers, substitute teachers, construction workers nearby, giving accounts that simply cannot be ignored of multiple other individuals, not Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, in vehicles with duffel bags with guns out in the open. This is something that needs to be addressed. I'm, of course, Bruce McGuire, and this is Mindshock, and we will address what the mainstream is too terrified to address in typical Mindshock fashion, with logic and reason at the forefront. If you want to help support the podcast, help bring logic and reason back to a world where it is quickly becoming extinct, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can become a YouTube member right here on YouTube for access to exclusive members-only streams and chats. Like and share the podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. Make sure you allow your device to have those notifications come through so you can be notified when the latest Mindshock episodes are released. And you could also check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast, or requests. You could also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. All right, so here is the first Columbine conspiracy theory. I'm reading this from racheljoyscott.tumblr.com, but I don't know if this was posted from elsewhere. Intro to the Columbine Conspiracy Theories series. I thought it'd be best to explain this a little before we get started. It is a lot to take in for me. For me especially, it was hard to question what I knew and believed strongly for ideas so unconventional and unheard of for something I have too been studying for years. But keep an open mind. So quite recently, I've been talking to an account on here who prefers to stay anonymous, who has pretty strong beliefs that things were left hidden and in the dark around Columbine. This came along with some pretty strong evidence that I just had to share and get opinions of. I'm not saying it's 100% true, but some of the evidence is pretty intriguing. So here is this theory. I have spent countless hours researching the causes, events, evidence, and aftermath of the Columbine tragedy. After years of repeatedly studying the same material, there was an abundance of incongruence, negligence, and evidence that I recorded which proves the official story did not be accurate in any way, shape, or form. While I do not assert any of the following evidence is categorically and undeniably fact, other than there being more than two shooters. Here is the evidence that I've uncovered that suggests that the Columbine tragedy was a satanic psychological operation. I will submit a series of posts. The first post would be on Rachel Joy Scott, whom I study thoroughly, seeing as this is a Rachel blog. The second will be on the multiple shooter theory. The third will be on Mark Taylor and the other surviving victims. The fourth and final post will be on the comparison of Columbine to other psychological operations. I will substantiate all the claims I make with evidence and photos. Before I begin, I would like to share the points that drove my research that remain unaddressed today. There are over 100 sworn accounts of multiple shooters. There are official reports of shots being fired 3.5 hours after the alleged suicides. There is documented evidence of prior knowledge of the attacks by law enforcement, local hospitals, student body, and the trenchcoat Mafia. The complete records are sealed until 2027, when Columbine parents would average being over 80 years old. They did the same thing with the Kennedy files, yet to be released. There were 95 undetonated bombs throughout the campus, some extremely heavy. Harris and Klebold could not have possibly moved all these bombs alone during the time a tape needed to be conveniently changed. The bombs utilized military-grade mercury detonators that suburban teenage boys could not have possibly created. Footage from the attacks have inaccurate timestamps. Patrick Ireland has no facial scars today despite taking 2 shotgun blasts to the face. Reference Lance Kirkland for comparison. Mark Taylor was institutionalized after suggesting Harris and Klebold were victims of satanic ritual abuse after successfully suing big pharmacy companies for the role that their drugs played. Klebold's full autopsy is suppressed. He was shot in the left temple by an alleged self-inflicted shotgun wound from a .22 caliber gun, despite being right-handed. .22 caliber guns are known for being extremely unreliable in suicide attempts. Suicide by gunshot always results in a gun falling far away from the corpse because of the loss of mental faculties needed to maintain a grip on the gun. Here they fell neatly against their bodies. These are just some of the points I'll cover. So, Columbine conspiracy number 1, Satanism in the Scott family. I have thoroughly studied Satanism because it is so prevalent, and it is imperative for people to understand the way Satanists work, to not be blind to its practice. The Columbine tragedy is plagued with Satanism in nearly every facet fathomable. However, I was surprised to see satanic imagery abundant in Rachel Scott's story because she has always been a role model for Christ to me. To understand this theory, one needs to understand the role of sacrifice in Satanism. A sacrifice in Satanism is often done for tangible gains. Consider for a second the amount of money and fame the Scott family has accumulated after producing multiple books, documentaries, feature-length movie, and building an international corporation through Rachel's challenge. For many, the perpetuation of what officials consider to be a lie regarding the circumstances of Rachel's death as it pertains to her faith has proven the Scott family is willing to exploit Rachel's legacy for their profit. My concerns began with what many consider Rachel's prophecy about her death. The Bible tells us that only God knows when we will die. This information shall not be known or sought by Christians consequently. The fact that Rachel predicted her death in her writings support the theory that she may have known of her death not because of her faith, but because of her impending sacrifice. Once one has learned the details of Columbine as a satanic psychological operation, which I will cover comprehensively, it becomes clear that Rachel might have been a victim of something far more nefarious than gunfire. Included are images of Craig Scott, her brother, Mark Alive, her big brother, Sue Klebold, preview of post to come, and the title shot of I'm Not Ashamed. Craig Scott, the fellow survivor, Lauren Bayer Bond, gave an interview for the 10th anniversary of the tragedy. For over a minute, the two flash a satanic image with their hands while laughing and discussing the event in third person as if they were not there. Curiously, Craig Scott was filmed in clean clothing in a cheerful mood outside the ambulance the day of the shooting, despite allegedly pretending to be dead next to 2 bloody corpses for an extended period. That has been posted here. Sue Klebold flashes the same inverted triangle of Satan hand gesture during her TEDx discussion for an extended period. In another image included, Craig Scott is also seen flashing the devil horns as he receives his Columbine diploma. In an interview he gave for Oprah, pictured above, he features the same devil horn sign on his t-shirt along with a pentagram. Mark Alive, pictured above, is also wearing an explicitly satanic shirt, the images of an all-seeing eye, satanic Freemasonry, and the broken cross for the Antichrist, not to mention the bond Daryl Scott formed with David, son of Sam Berkowitz, a satanic murderer. Many Satanists pretend to abandon their ways. It often ends ugly when a cult member tries to leave Satanism, as Cassie Bernal's experience proved, also posted about here before. I strongly encourage you to research these signs and the significance. They are deliberate, and Satanists want to normalize them for people to disregard them. There are many more concerning recent events that I cannot disclose now involving the Scott family. However, there was a lot of satanic imagery, and I'm not ashamed that I can talk about. The image included, you can see an owl and pentagrams, 2 satanic worship images. I produced some of the rarest Rachel material on the internet. I can tell you she never drew owls or stars as they make it seem. There is also a line in the movie repeated 3 times attributable to William Shakespeare: "All the world is a stage." This line is often associated with MK Ultra mind control, which I'll get into later post as well, particularly in other psychological operations. The final concerning piece of evidence is what the Scott family has published as Rachel's favorite things. Her favorite insect is said to be the blue monarch butterfly, which is the symbol for MK Ultra. Why would the Scott family feel the need to disclose this? Her favorite song is said to be Bittersweet Symphony by The Verve, a band who has been described as satanic majesty incarnate, a glorious spectacle. Sampling a Rolling Stones song, the Rolling Stones are explicitly Satanists. Her favorite meal is said to be cheese pizza. Based on the recent evidence revealed in Pizzagate, we know this means little girl in the world of pedophilia. Pedophilia is huge in Satanism and pertinent to this case. It's not a coincidence Eric and Dylan worked at Blackjack Pizza. So, okay, hold on. I have to interject here because this is obviously, I mean, not to appeal to incredulity is a logical fallacy, but a lot of these, I know I give coincidence theorists a little bit of crap, but there are coincidences out there. A lot of teenagers' favorite food is pizza, possibly the majority. I would say that means nothing. Now, these guys working at Blackjack Pizza places are popular places to work at. Now, I don't think it's a coincidence that all of the Trenchcoat Mafia members happen to work at a particular location. This location happening to be a pizza-type establishment, I don't think that's relevant what kind of an establishment is meant. If it was a burger place, so what? If it was some kind of regular Italian place or a Chinese food place, so what? That what's interesting is that all of these Trenchcoat Mafia members happen to work there. Although I have to give this poster credit, he's following up here. Again, I am not asserting anything is concretely true. I came across all this information, and knowing what I know about Columbine and Satanism, I connected the dots that I saw. I do not believe in coincidences, and the blatant images of satanic imagery that I shared concern me. I pray for Rachel daily. I felt I had to share this for her in pursuit of the truth. I look forward to comments and questions that these photos, information, and theories generate. Okay, so is this an unhinged loony? I cannot say. So let's look at the next post here, the multiple shooter theory. The multiple shooter conspiracy theory is not a theory so much as it is a collection of pieces to the puzzle that have been suppressed. Beginning the day of the shootings, law enforcement and media have pushed an anti-bullying, anti-gun, and mental health awareness narrative to forward pre-existing and enduring agendas. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold are by no means innocent. However, they were victimized as patsies to one lie. The two were not the sole perpetrators of the event. This is irrefutable and obvious when examining evidence and witness testimony outside of the scope of the mainstream media and official government statements. I ask that you please read all of the following. Feel free to reference any of the evidence cited for yourself. The evidence comes directly from the Jefferson County final report on the Columbine High School, released in May 2000, local publications, and more. This theory would be more appropriately named the multiple perpetrator theory because although there were more than 2 shooters, some of the personnel that carried out the attacks on Columbine did so with explosives or other improvised means. Before covering any of the shootings, there are multiple incongruent facts that prove Harris and Klebold were not alone. Between 11:14 a.m. to 11:22 a.m., when a janitor accidentally, in quotations, forgot to change the cafeteria surveillance tapes, Jefferson County reports the 2 boys placed their explosives to detonate them at the start of a lunch. A minimum of 95 undetonated bombs were found throughout the cafeteria after the events, some weighing more than either Harris or Klebold could individually carry. It is physically impossible for 2 teenage boys to carry that many explosives in one trip and strategically place them throughout a cafeteria large enough to accommodate hundreds in the span of 8 minutes, let alone do so unnoticed. Federal and independent investigators also noticed many of these explosives featured military-grade mercury detonating systems, far too sophisticated for some experts to construct, let alone 2 boys who could hardly put together crickets. There are many more irregularities that precede the shootings. The week before the shootings, Columbine High School was simulating active shooter drills. Where much of the footage released to the public on the shootings was filmed, more on this later. Before first period even began, the day of, students Jessica Gertz, Stephanie Hain, Anne-Marie Kelly, and Nathan Vanderoff reported men wearing three-piece black suits with clipboards, surveying the perimeter of the school, and similarly dressed federal agents inside the school. Many students noticed that they thought there was a drug bust. Student Crystal Aguilera reported a brown pickup truck circling the campus with similarly dressed personnel inside before the start of classes. Again, before covering the shootings themselves, I would next like to cover events following the official timeline that prove that Harris and Klebold were patsies. The boys are said to have committed suicide between 12:05 and 12:08 p.m. There were consistent shots heard by law enforcement, students, staff, and faculty alike up to nearly 4 hours later after 12:08 p.m. This is Brandy Wiseman, document 4753, Patty Nielsen, document JCSCO 77. The double suicide official ruling was initially treated as a murder-suicide because the positioning of the corpses and guns of the two boys make it impossible for them to have both committed suicide. The blood spatter report shows that the boys were already lying down next to each other when shot. Klebold was shot through the left temple, which is a subject of incongruent controversy. The High Point Model 995 carbine rifle could not be held in such a way to have produced this shot by Klebold himself, with an elevated exit wound from the back of the right skull. The wound suggests that Klebold was left-handed, while the gun's location suggests he was right-handed. The rifle was a newer model of the gun and only a .22 caliber. What equipment Klebold and Harris carried with them? .22 cal weapons are notorious for failing in suicide attempts, even concerning headshots. The firearm could not produce the 1/4 inch through wound present, especially at such close range. Also, in virtually every suicide by firearm, the guns used fall several meters away from the corpses because of the recoil. In Klebold's case, the gun allegedly fell right behind him, opposite from the side it was used, another physical impossibility. The partial autopsy released for Klebold explains the irregularities in this wound and adds that an abrasive powder present makes determining critical details of the wound difficult. Consequently, Klebold's full autopsy report has not been released. In fact, most victims lack a full autopsy report currently. More on that later. In 2007, a local judge ordered that the Columbine records shall remain sealed for another 20 years until 2027, when the parents of victims, law enforcement officials, and school personnel would average 80 to 90 years of age, if they are still living. The most damning evidence, by way of the infamous basement tapes, have already been destroyed. Similar methods to suppress documents have been used in other conspiracies, such as the JFK assassination, the files of which have yet to be released. Although a lot of them have been released now, but still, many still are not. Lastly, before getting to the shootings, the evidence recovered by investigators at the scene of the crime irrefutably establishes more than two shooters. Jefferson County reports that a total of 329 shots were fired, 141 by law enforcement, 188 by the attackers. However, even media sources like CNN and the New York Times reported over 900 shots, and independent investigators by the Colorado Bureau of Investigations reported over 1,000 rounds of spent ammunition found at the scene. This means there were at least 571 rounds of ammunition that were incompatible with any firearm used by Harris Klebold or law enforcement officials. John Stone, the official from Jefferson County that became its spokesperson for the event, confirmed at least 17 people had died during the attacks in the Denver Post. In a phone call that can be found online with President Bill Clinton, Jeffco officials informed the president that at least 25 victims had died. In that same phone call, President Clinton alludes to the use of technology such as RFID microchips to prevent such tragedies, and that crises like this could not be wasted. More of this agenda later. All of the weapons used by Harris and Klebold were coincidentally already up for legislative bans. The agendas behind this psychological operation are painfully obvious. There are at least 10 bodies and at least 571 rounds that remain unaccounted for today that Harris and Klebold absolutely were not involved with. For the sake of brevity and time, I could not scan all pieces of evidence or fully cite some. If you would like any specific piece of evidence, please message an inquiry. Okay, so Okay, the next post will cover the over half a dozen perpetrators involved in the shootings and explosions on April 20th, 1999. So I believe the coincidence theorists just explain this as, again, fog of war and erroneous reporting. Make of that what you will. This is a continuation of the first post written on the multiple shooter theory. If you have not yet done so, I ask that you please read that before continuing with the following. Again, the evidence here comes directly from the Jefferson County Final Report on Columbine, May 2000, and local media publications. Please feel free to reference any citation for yourself. I can fully provide the detailed sources for anything cited if you would like to save some time and energy alternatively. The evidence against there being two perpetrators during the events of the Columbine tragedy seems infinite and is overwhelming. I will begin with an inexplicable discrepancy. As mentioned in the previous post, John Stone, the lead investigator for Jefferson County, on several occasions to several mainstream media sources, confirmed that 17 corpses lied dead in the school because of the tragedy. Federal investigators who illogically and without precedence were at the scene before local law enforcement relayed to President Bill Clinton that a minimum of 25 people had died. Jonathan Vandermark and Brandy Wiseman, two students at Columbine High School, confirmed that they saw 3 dead bodies on a stairwell, even providing the common detail that the corpses still had their backpacks on in their respective interviews with investigators. This was Denver Post. Daughter retreats behind stony wall of pain, April 25th, 1999. The problem is that the official narrative does not mention anyone dying outside the library other than Rachel Scott, Daniel Raubauer, and Dave Sanders. The treatment of the corpses themselves present a plethora of evidence that suggests this tragedy was an orchestrated event. The first problem is that law enforcement officials cannot declare an individual deceased unless decapitation is present or the body has been decaying evidently for an extended period of days. All of the dead were not properly declared as deceased by medical professionals, and their bodies were left as is for over 24 hours. In a future post, I will break down the video evidence that allegedly shows the bodies of Rachel Scott and Daniel Raubauer outside the school. These were clearly dummies strategically placed and moved during drills. The body alleged to be Rachel Scott was not dressed in the attire Rachel wore that day and was heinously desecrated as if it were an actual corpse. No law official would be asked to risk his or her life to retrieve a corpse during a live event. The body would especially not be dragged multiple times. A major general, CIA, NSA, M16, NATO, and FBI were all present before the events officially concluded, an impossibility without foreknowledge of the attacks. There was gridlock purposely created that did not allow local law enforcement or medical personnel to enter the school, which is a large reason why Dave Sanders eventually bled out. Multiple calls that were made with information of the shooters, which were not limited to Harris and Klebold, were ignored. A diversion bomb was set off in a field between Chatfield and Wadsworth near the school minutes before the attack. Parent Barbara Karakausis noticed 5 to 6 men near the entrance of the school in attire later described by witnesses of the shooting, 2 of which were sitting on large duffel bags. Local resident Martin Middleton came forward saying that he was warned of the attack by Trenchcoat Mafia members months before, which went ignored by law enforcement. It is important to understand these discrepancies and incongruences, along with the ones mentioned in the previous post, before describing the perpetrators and reasoning for the event, because all these questions are answered and the obvious picture of what really happened that day becomes clearer. The hundreds of shots that are not accounted for, and more importantly, the additional 10 corpses, now have attributable criminals to them. One last note before getting to the actual shooters and bombers themselves. No one heard or saw Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold commit suicide inside the school. Federal snipers were recorded as witnessing the events that transpired in the library, which is how Harris's and Klebold's path was determined, along with the cafeteria footage. This creates many questions addressed in the previous post. However, I'll pose some more here. If the federal snipers had positive IDs on Klebold and Harris and had visuals on them while they were carrying out their murders, why weren't they neutralized? If the 2 boys were witnessed as committing suicide, why was the case originally investigated as a murder-suicide? Many local law enforcement officials stated that the snipers used could barely speak English. Which agencies did these personnel belong to? Who was generating the gunfire after 12:08? the last time the two could have committed suicide, according to the snipers. I will begin naming the additional shooters in the next post. I planned on doing so in this one, but it would be too long. Hundreds of students identified more than a half a dozen extra personnel who perpetrated the attacks. I will name them and provide the evidence in which the testimony comes from in the next post. Okay, Robert Perry, an expelled Columbine High and Trenchcoat Mafia member, was potentially identified by dozens of students and faculty. Student B.J. Monte irrefutably declared Perry as one of the shooters because of the severe acne, crooked teeth, pigeon toe mannerism, and unique trenchcoat that he had. Perry's trenchcoat was made of a cloth material. It was not a leather duster because he could not afford one. Technically, Perry was the only member of the Trenchcoat Mafia who actually had a trenchcoat. Students Brian Fry, 813, Lacey Smith, 4,465, and Crystal Archuleta, 2,346, Tessa Nelson and Matthew Connolly all echoed these rigidly specific details. Most of these students even picked Perry out of a photo lineup which included Dylan Klebold. Perry slightly resembled Klebold, and many of these students stated that law enforcement pressured them into claiming the person they saw was actually Klebold but not Perry. But they refused. Brooks Brown attempted to help the official narrative by telling law enforcement during his interview that Klebold had acne scars, despite no one else ever mentioning this detail, not even Klebold's parents. And of course, we do have the pictures from the prom. Many students interviewed throughout the investigation claimed that Brown is a compulsive liar. Perry was seen driving an older individual on the campus of Columbine High by the aforementioned students before the start of classes. Likewise, many students saw Perry after the attack concluded. Brianne Cook, who victim Rachel Scott often wrote to and spoke with, identified Perry as a shooter to friends and law enforcement. Cook, who was evacuated to a local library after the attack, reportedly began hyperventilating because she saw Perry there, who had changed into a tie-dye shirt. Many people at the library also noted that Perry was at the evacuation site because of this obvious detail. Perry began working graveyard shifts at his job the same month as the attack. However, he did not show up for work on April 19th or April 20th. Curious. And I don't see Brianne Cook's account in the documentation. Was her interview not released, and why not? Chris Morris, a then Columbine High School senior and Trenchcoat Mafia member, was also positively identified by an overwhelming number of students and faculty. Ashley Eagleland identifies Morris by name in her interview with Jeffco Official. Students Jake Apodaca, Chris Wisher, Donald Arnold, Patrick Neville, and Mike Kenny, among many others, all described seeing Morris throwing explosives outside of the school. Just as Robert Perry's claim to have been sleeping during the attack has been proven impossible, Morris's claim to have been playing Nintendo with Corey Friesen, fellow Trenchcoat Mafia co-founder, has also been proven impossible because of the eyewitness testimony and unintentionally non-redacted pages in the final report. Fellow conspirator and Trenchcoat Mafia member Joe Stair mentioned that Morris has anger management issues and caused him to act violently before the attack. Morris had previously been suspended for pulling a knife on students. In Morris's own interview with law enforcement, there are two major discrepancies in the official narrative. Morris, along with Eric Harris's ex-girlfriend Sasha Jacobs, claimed that the Harris family had prior knowledge of the attack and of the construction of explosive that took place under their roof. The Harrises never testified because they refused immunity. What, if that's true, why did they refuse him? I don't know, that's weird. Morris also claimed that Phil Duran, who worked at Blackjack Pizza with the shooters, had prior knowledge of the attack and willingly bought the guns for Harrison Klebold. If Morris claims to have known that these individuals were told of the attack, how can he claim that he himself had no prior knowledge on the attack and did not participate in any way, shape, or form? Morris was arrested the day of. Law enforcement refused to acknowledge this. More on this arrest later. And is that because Morris took immunity? Joseph Stair, also a Columbine High School student and Trenchcoat Mafia member during the attack, was identified by a diverse number of I&E or witnesses. Joseph, or simply Joe, revealed a great deal about the Trenchcoat Mafia during his interviews with investigators. Like Chris Morris admitted of himself, Joe Stair practiced Satanism. Stair would reportedly carry around what he called the Devil's Bible. Also, Stair and fellow Trenchcoat Mafia male members would kiss each other in public to discuss the students around them and promote Satanism. As noted by investigator G.B. Muma, Stair threatened to blow up Columbine on several occasions. Columbine High School peer counselor Lindsay corroborated this and informed law enforcement that police reports and internal Columbine reports were made on Stair and several other members of the Trenchcoat Mafia. Prior knowledge of the attack was abundant. I will get into more particular details on the Trenchcoat Mafia, included documented proof of Dylan Klebold's involvement with the group in a later post. Students Salazar, document 3761, Courtney Harrible, Alicia Insinius, and Stephanie Duffy, 2919, among many others, all reported seeing Joe Stair. The lack of redactions in these students' accounts show that they heard fellow shooters even call out to him Joe and not the word yo. Stair allegedly committed suicide in 2007, when many of those around him claim that he was preparing to become a whistleblower. Wow. There were more personnel involved in the attack, however. These were the only 3 mentioned by name in the final report because they were the only 3 students other than Harrison Klebold who attended Columbine. I will describe the other people included in later posts, which will include Trenchcoat Mafia members from nearby schools and law enforcement. I will also provide documented evidence of prior knowledge as well as new details of the Trenchcoat Mafia. Patrick McDuffie, former Columbine High School student and original Trenchcoat Mafia member, gave his report to law enforcement April 20th, 1999, approximately 9:30 p.m. McDuffie immediately informed law enforcement that the Trenchcoat Mafia not only had prior knowledge of the attack, but planned and executed it. Despite claims to the contrary, McDuffie, along with several members of the Trenchcoat Mafia, including Alex Marsh, Christy Epling, and several others, confirmed that Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold were indeed a part of the Trenchcoat Mafia in their police reports. In his report to authorities, Adam Kyler, known for his friendship with victim Rachel Scott, explained that a trench-coated Klebold threatened to kill him, which resulted in internal consequences during December 1998. Document 4065. McDuffie named over a dozen Trenchcoat Mafia members, providing their addresses, affiliation to the Trenchcoat Mafia, affiliation to Columbine High School, and roles during the planning and execution of the attack. This confirmed the hundreds of claims from students, faculty, staff, and alumni that reported more members of the Trenchcoat Mafia were involved. Trenchcoat Mafia member Kentaro Kojima wrote on a Columbine High School classroom board, "We should blow up the school," shortly before the attack began, according to student Terry Pexosa. It seems like a lot of these interviews are still sealed for some reason. McDuffie explained that Trenchcoat Mafia members from nearby Chatfield and Bear Creek high schools also participated. He informed law enforcement that Trenchcoat Mafia members often spoke German to one another, which supplements Stephanie Duffy and Lisa Forgan's claims to have heard shooters speaking the language during the attack. Document 2919. McDuffie's list and damning evidence completely contradict the official narrative. McDuffie was subsequently forced to retract his report. A plethora of students described who they believed was an older individual with spiky blonde highlighted hair shooting during the attack. Jonathan Vandermark, Eric Walton, David Eagle, and Jennifer Small. Among others, all described these unique characteristics in their respective reports. On a side note, Small also explained that she ran into Eric Harris in the smoker's pit minutes before the attack. She mentioned how bad her day was going, and Harris informed her of it also being Hitler's birthday as a joke. These students also mentioned they saw uniformed law enforcement shoot at students, faculty, and staff. Penny Zare, document 5212, Candace Cushman, document 2794, and Michelle Fox, document 5196, all state they saw hostile shooters and law enforcement shooters aim at civilians from the rooftops. Pictures can be seen of law enforcement units with clipboards on the roof of Columbine High School, establishing the event as a drill. Students Jake Apadaka and Chris Wisher said they saw gunmen hiding at Weaver Park and recorded in their reports that they felt blown off by investigators. Scott Fusilier, former Columbine High School student, said and coincidentally the son of FBI investigator Dwayne Fusilier, who led the Columbine High investigation, also had ties to the Trenchcoat Mafia. Fusilier, along with Brooks Brown, associate of the Trenchcoat Mafia and friend of Harrison Klebold, were on a production team for a film project that illustrated Columbine High School exploding. Brown, who at the time played in a band, planned to release an album with this image as its cover. Brown also sang in the school choir. During a December 98 rehearsal, fellow member Lori Reynolds overheard Brown boasting that something big was going to happen the following April 20th at Columbine High School. So Lori Reynolds' account, document 4190 here, let's do a quick aside on this. December of 1998, just prior to Christmas break, while in her first hour choir class, she overheard something that a boy named Brooks Brown was telling some other boys in the class. Brown told a boy named Robbie Sherper that on April 20th, something bad would happen. She thought that Brooks Brown might hang out with the Trenchcoat Mafia. Regarding the broadcast on the TV monitors on 420, she said the thought for the day was, "You'll wish you hadn't come today." Wow. Okay, so all the coincidence theorists that maintain that not only did Eric and Dylan act alone, but that no one had prior knowledge, how do they explain this? This is Lori Reynolds, a non-associate of the Trenchcoat Mafia. There's something else that's chilling here in her account as well. Mr. Sanders ran into the cafeteria, yelled for everyone to get down. Lori, along with Elizabeth Nolan and David Lockwood, laid down and crawled towards the stairs on the far side of the cafeteria. They then ran up the stairs. Mr. Andres Sr. and a large group of students stayed in the auditorium. All during this time, shots could be heard from the general direction of the cafeteria. Mr. Andres wanted the students to stay in the auditorium. However, the students all ran out and in the direction of the front office. When they arrived in front of the office, they noticed what they thought was a bomb, so they ran down the hallway, which leads to the north, and exited towards the west side of the school. The same basic group of students continued on towards the public library in Clement Park. While standing outside the library at approximately 12:30 to 1 p.m., an unidentified individual walked by Lori and a friend of hers named Matt Lorenz. This individual openly laughed at them. This individual is described as male, 18 to 19 years of age, 5'10", thin, 180 pounds, light complexion, clean-shaven, wearing black cargo-type pants, white t-shirt, and red suspenders. So this is not the first account of individuals at the library or Leawood Elementary, Trenchcoat Mafia members, or just random individuals who were looking gleeful or happy. She said this individual flat out laughed at these huddling students who had escaped from the school. This is crazy. This is crazy. Continuing on here, again, Brown is seldom mentioned in a positive light with those associated with Columbine High School. He was described in police reports as tending to lie a lot. During the 4th hour in his creative writing class, Brown confirmed that he sat in Eric Harris's assigned seat. This was unusual, and many students noted this in their report. Okay, so if he's never sat in Eric Harris's seat before, and this was the only day he ever sat in Eric Harris's seat before, what does that mean? I don't know. What does that mean? That's weird. I mean, does that mean anything? Why would he even come to school? I mean, I don't know. This is weird. This was unusual, and many students noted this in their reports. Coincidentally, the only other student spared during the attack, as Brooks claimed to have been, was John Savage, who also had ties to the Trenchcoat Mafia. Nathan Dykeman, Klebold's best friend, did not immediately evacuate the area. Instead, Dykeman laughed when he found out about the shooting and bragged that he knew who did it and could not believe they decided to do it that day. The final point that I'll bring up in this post is the 1999 Columbine High School prom. Emily Paletta, a then Columbine High senior, said that all the posters for the prom were vandalized the week before it took place. The posters read, "It's coming, April 17th. The vandals then crossed out the date and replaced it with, "It's coming, April 20." Kathy Pevelanon and Linda Revel reported seeing Dylan Klebold talking to a green-haired individual in the kitchen of the Columbine High School cafeteria during the prom. They reported that they saw a large propane tank in the freezer of said kitchen. Law enforcement admits they could never locate the individual seen talking to Klebold. Wow, a lot of claims made there. Just a lot of claims. Also, document 1531, Shayna Geslin has an interesting account here. She said on April 20th at 6:20 a.m., she was driving northbound on Pierce Street in front of the school en route to the sophomore parking lot in Clement Park. At that time, Shanna said she saw 4 cars parked side by side in the senior parking lot, which she considered somewhat unusual for that time of day. Shanna was unable to describe the cars or their occupants. Huh. Wow, this is weird. So, Then she continued to Clement Park. She parked her car, walked to the school, entered the school's main east doors at 6:30 a.m., and went to take a makeup test for history class. So she came to school early, and she sees 4 side-by-side cars in the senior parking lot at 6:20 a.m. It's weird, huh? Curious. So she remained in the school until 8:40 a.m. after the start of her second period class, whereupon she walked back to her car and drove home because of a sore throat. Now, if you think that's suspicious, she said she felt better as the morning progressed and drove back to school at 11:20 a.m. Shauna said that at about 11:30 a.m., she was driving northbound on Pierce in front of the school, but encountered numerous students running eastbound across the street. Shauna said that instead of attempting to continue north on Pierce, she turned right onto eastbound West Fair Drive and parked her car on the south side of the street next to Leawood Park. From there, Shauna said she got out of the car and began walking west toward the school. Shauna said that while attempting to cross Pierce, she heard gunshots coming from the school and was ordered to get away from the school. Shauna said that goings on in front of the school were very chaotic, and she ran southward along the east side of Pierce Street. She said she encountered friend Joshua Nettles in his car and in the neighborhood southwest of the school. Shauna said she got into Joshua's car. They drove to Leawood Elementary, where they remained for several hours. She said she never saw any shooters or anyone wearing a trench coat. During the interview, Shauna mentioned hearing something eerie and unusual about the daily video announcement that was broadcast at the start of her second period. She couldn't remember much other than hearing something to the effect of, "Today's the day." Also, Shanna mentioned a yellow poster in a window area on the south side of the southeast hallway between the math and science wings. Shanna said this poster was an advertisement for the school prom, which was held on April 17th, 1999. And it read, "It's coming," followed by that date. Shanna said that prior to April 20th, someone had crossed out the date of 17 and replaced it with a 20. She thought this was something law enforcement should know. What do all the coincidence theorists make out of that one? So a bunch of activity in the senior parking lot, 4 cars at 6:20 a.m. 4 cars, 6:20 a.m. What are they doing? What are they doing? And then, of course, the poster. All right, the last thing I'm going to go over for now are the strange goings-on. So just more witness accounts of things not as they seem, as in there being co-conspirators, possibly other individuals assisting with carrying in duffel bags or bombs, or possibly even being shooters or being present for shooting and laughing about it, or things of that nature. Another post from Star Viego. School Resource Officer and JCSO Deputy Neil Gardner did not report any unusual activity prior to the incident, document 8068. Star Viego says, "To which I say he should have kept his eyes open a bit wider. because Columbine High School and environs were indeed the scene of suspicious comings and goings in the days and hours before the massacre occurred. What these episodes all have in common is any inkling of a follow-up or any attempt to investigate further on the part of IOs. Let me count the ways. 1. Document 7020. A woman named Mary Webb and her son Michael notice a trenchcoat Mafia member, long black hair and a ponytail, standing by the front doors of Columbine High School at 1:20 p.m. on Saturday, April 17th. I mean, that might have been innocuous, who knows. Second citation, Josiah Pina, document 7014. On the night of the prom, Saturday, April 17th, a friend's mom sees two black-clad figures go back and forth between the gym and the back of the school. So how many times are they going back and forth here? And in the actual documentation, 7015, one of the mothers of a student was smoking in a car outside. He heard that she saw two people dressed in black running back and forth between the gym and the back of the school. Could not remember whose mom it was that saw these two people. So they're running, not walking. They're running back and forth. It doesn't state how many times, but I would say that that'd be at least one or two times back and forth, because it wasn't just one direction, because if it was back and forth. Very strange, very strange. Don't know what to make of that. 3. Carol Knapke, 7648. After prom volunteer sees man walking around at 11:30 p.m. on Saturday, April 17th. She is suspicious enough to describe him in detail to co-worker Kathy Pavilianen. Wow, this is actually even more concerning. So Pavilianen stated so this is document 7648, on April 17th and April 18th, she was responsible for setting up an after prom at Columbine High. Stated she was the chairperson for that event. Stated she was at Columbine High between the early hours of 4:17 and left sometime after 6 a.m. on 4:18. Witness Pavilianen stated that at approximately 11:15, she was notified by another worker that there were two male individuals attempting to enter the school by the locked doors. Pavilianen stated that the school would be open at 12:30 to allow the kids to enter to stay at the school between 12:30 and 5:30, but that once a student left the premises, he or she would not be able to return to the school. Witness Pavilianen stated the students could enter by the main school entrance and no other entrance. She stated that approximately 2:15 a.m. now, it was her understanding that the same individuals that had tried to get into school earlier were again trying to get into the school by a locked door. Pavilianen stated that she was reporting this due to the incident occurring at Columbine High, feeling that this possibly could be a lead. She was also told by an individual who was helping at the after-prom celebration named Linda Reffel had seen a propane tank in the cafeteria freezer on Saturday evening and thought it might be helium for the balloons they had blown up earlier that evening. Pavilianen stated that witness Reffel told her that she thought it was odd that a helium tank was in the freezer, but got busy and forgot to ask someone about it. Witness Pavilianen also stated that Dylan Klebold was at the after-prom activities at the high school, and he was with an individual with green hair. She also stated she remembers an incident where a female named Amber Burgress was seen with an unknown white male coming from a restricted area, the weight room. Pavilianen stated that after she told Burgress to leave the area, she noticed that the door to the area had been propped open with the steel washer. She removed the steel washer and secured the door. So, wow. So were they leaving these locked doors open so other individuals can come and go and possibly plant all these bombs? Possibly close to 200. She said one kid was wearing a yellow coat. of the kids that were trying to get into the school. 2 kids that were trying to get into the school at different entrances that were locked. Miss Pavilion stated that she saw Dylan Klebold come to the party with a male kid with green hair and wearing black leather. She had never seen this kid before. Miss Pavilion stated that the kid had no reason to be there. So, was this a guy from one of the other high schools? Trenchcoat Mafia member, perhaps? Also, another point here, Pavilion was assisted in the organization of After Prom by Carol Knapke and Kathy Ford. Knapke told Pavilion that she and Ford saw a suspicious man behind the school at 11:30 p.m., shortly after prom ended, but before After Prom started. She described the man in detail to Pavilion, and I don't know where that description is. Okay. Continuing on here. Citation 4, Laurel Salerno, document 4284, on Sunday, April 18th, sees 3 grungy guys in the Columbine High School parking lot, says they are seniors or older. They walked to the west side of the school for 1 minute, then returned to their car and left. They appeared to have a definite person in mind. She described them thusly: first person, big, tall, red hair, flat top. Second person, muscular brown hair. Third person, brown hair. And I believe at least one witness in the school described a suspect with red hair during the shooting. Citation 5, Teresa Miller, 5926. On Monday, April 19th, she sees 2 boys, sleeveless t-shirts, blue jeans, pushing a large box big enough to hold a big screen TV on a dolly into the school. Again, I guess that could be anything, but because it's Monday, April 19th, I guess it should have been followed up on as well. Tuesday, April 20th, Citation 6, Shauna Gesselin, 1521 and 6424, at 6:20 a.m. sees 4 cars parked side by side in the senior parking lot, which she thinks is odd because of the early hour. We went over that before. Citation 7, Sarah Roseberry, 4210 document, at 7:20 a.m. sees 3 camo-wearing subjects in the main hall of Columbine High School. Citation 8, Ashley Primley, document 4071. In the morning at some point, Stephanie Liesbeck's dad sees a green minivan parked in front of the Mormon house with a bunch of Trenchcoat Mafia members gathered around it. Wow. That's a bit more damning. Citation 9, Barbara Karnakusis, document 7523. At about 7:30 a.m., she sees a group of 5 to 6 white males standing at the corner of Pierce and First Street south of the school. They are dressed in black. One looked older, in his mid-20s, with short blonde hair. 2 of them are sitting on a large black backpack. What do you make of that? I wonder what the coincidence theorists make of that. Nothing to see here. 5 to 6 Trenchcoat Mafia type members. One guy who looks a lot older than a high school student. Again, this individual was cited by many people inside the school during the shooting, before and after. And 2 of them are sitting on a large black backpack. How often would one stumble across such a scene at 7:30 a.m.? How often do Trenchcoat Mafia members even have their backpacks with them if they're not really into school or they're former dropouts? Why would they have backpacks? Citation 10, Lindsay Ludwig, document 6815, in the junior parking lot at 9 a.m., sees 2 males who appear to be hiding near a white pickup truck. That's curious. 11, Steve Ogle, document 1056, sees a cop car with clearly marked police insignia parked in one of Columbine High School lots sometimes that morning, pre-11 a.m. Citation 12, Drew Cassidy, document 7459. 10-year-old Drew sees 4 guys in black clothing drive by his house in a light blue compact car, yelling in a different language at 10 a.m. Again, how often does that scene unfold? Is April 20th the only time ever that this was seen by 10-year-old Drew here? Citation 13, J. Adams, document 7422, and Roger Anderson, 7430, construction workers. They see a black BMW carrying 4 teenagers followed by a small tan car with 2 people drive in and out of the cul-de-sac near Cayley and Pierce, followed 5 minutes later by the sound of bombs. According to video teacher Gary Toloco, 8976, roof repairman Gary Clark told him he saw 3 people exit a vehicle with Harrison Klebold and that a tan vehicle followed them into the lot. Clark denies he ever said any such thing. Did someone get to him? And why would a random adult, okay, because you could say, okay, school students, rumors, whatever. Why would video teacher Gary Toloco make up what the roof repairman told him? I mean, what's the purpose here? However, if law enforcement told Clark to deny this in the future, then he would, of course, deny it. Aftermath, citation 14, Dana Bayless, 8912, manager of a 7-Eleven near Kennedy High School. She sees 3 males, including one wearing trench coat, tall, slender, long blonde hair, shoulder length, enter her store at 1:55 p.m., acting strange and nervous. They deny any knowledge of what's going on at Columbine High School. The other thing is, how often do these trenchcoat mafia members act strange and nervous? Aren't they usually acting tough, trying to intimidate and scare people, or simply disattached, or laughing and making fun of people? Here's a document 8912 regarding Dana Bayless. So she reported she had a videotape recording of some kids dressed in trench coats at her store, with this video being taken on the day of the incident. So there's video recording here. There's security footage. The lead further stated that normally kids from Kennedy High School congregate at her store and that she knows all of their names. She stated that, however, on this date, 2 of her employees observed 3 males whom they had never seen before. The on-duty clerk further stated to Dana Bayless that one of them was wearing a long black trench coat and all 3 of them were sweaty on their faces when they came into the store. One of the on-duty clerks advised the 3 males if they had any knowledge of what was going on at Columbine High School. They replied, "What do you mean? What's going on?" with them appearing to not have any idea of what was taking place there at the time. So they were sweaty as if they were running? The time was approximately 1:55 p.m. that they came into the store. Dana further advised that she was told by her 2 clerks that the kids were very nervous and sweating on their faces. So the one male, tall, with the long black trench coat, white male, tall, slender, long blonde hair, shoulder length with bangs in his face. Clerks estimated between 17 and 18. All 3 individuals were sweating, and they thought that was odd for the one individual to be wearing a long trench coat on a warm day. The 3 unknown males did not say where they were from, and they further affirmed the fact that they had never seen any of them before. So again, whenever something stands out, it's a little weird, isn't it? So if kids from the high school, a trenchcoat mafia member, if they visit the store regularly, these particular individuals had never been to that store before, except on April 20th. That's kind of weird. I don't know. Another coincidence? I guess the coincidence theorists would say so. They stated the 3 unknown males remained in the store for several minutes, then they left the store with them catching a bus that traveled northbound on Wadsworth Boulevard. I'd be curious if those individuals were ever identified. Next, we have citation 15, Lisa McKenna, document 7541. The mother of a Columbine High School student, at 6:30, she sees a late 80s white Nissan or Toyota pull into the driveway of the home of neighbor Stephanie Plank, sees 5 to 6 kids, 4 boys, 2 girls exit the vehicle, high-fiving each other. They were celebrating like the excitement of winning a football game. McKenna recalled one of the boys having long, dirty blonde hair and wearing dark pants. None of the kids were wearing a trench coat. Months later, after classes had resumed at Chatfield, she sees a red Geo Metro drop students off at the same location. The red Geo Metro, huh? So, of course, the red Geo Metro is the vehicle the vehicle that's associated with Robert Perry. John Engerland saw Robert Perry driving a red Geo Metro near school 2:30 p.m. According to him, someone fitting Joe Stair's description was hanging out the window with a pistol. They were both wearing trench coats. And this Geo Metro has been cited by a number of students. So looking at document 7541 now, Lisa McKenna was interviewed at her residence in the presence of her daughter, Ashley McKenna, after being advised. Okay, so she said the following: April 20th, McKenna observed what she thought was inappropriate behavior by some high school student-aged kids at a neighbor's house. McKenna thought the behavior was inappropriate given the shootings that had occurred at Columbine High School that day. Approximately 6:30 p.m., white late 80s model Nissan or Toyota sedan pulled into the driveway of a house located on Eaton Way. Okay. 5 to 6 kids exited the vehicle and were high-fiving. They were celebrating like the excitement and joy of winning a football game. The group included possibly 4 boys, 2 girls. McKenna recalled one of the boys having long, dirty blonde hair and wearing dark pants. None of the kids was wearing a trench coat. She did not recognize any of the individuals as students at Columbine High. Apparently, this was the home of Stephanie Plank, who is a student at Columbine High School. Let's look at Stephanie Plank's account, because she also stated here that on the first and second day that the Columbine students went back to school at Chatfield, a red Geo Metro dropped off students at this same residence. So this is where Stephanie Plank lives. Let's look at Stephanie Plank's account. 7024. So the report dated May 3rd regarding the May 3rd interview between 9:23 10:15 a.m. Stephanie stated she arrived at school at 7 a.m., proceeded to the student store, which is located at the Rebel Corner down near the cafeteria. She remained in that general area until about 7:25. While in the Rebel Corner, she stated she was seated at a table with a friend of hers by the name of James Helms. I provided Stephanie with a map of the cafeteria. Unfortunately, the seating diagram does not depict the tables located in the Rebel Corner, thus she was unable to give me an exact table location. She stated after she left Rebel Corner, she proceeded to class. She stated after her third period class, which is Arts of the World, taught by Miss Nelson, she left the school building at 10:10 a.m. for lunch with her friends Kendra Fagler and Lacey Veach. The vehicle that they drove into to lunch was in Kendra's vehicle. Stephanie stated that it was parked near Leawood Park. She said they went to lunch in the Southwest Plaza area and were not on campus when the incident occurred, and it wasn't until 11:36 when they tried to return to school that they found out about the incident. Now, again, there just seems to be an unusual amount of people that were not at the school at those exact critical minutes that the incident unfolded. Again, I'm sure a certain percentage of them would have been away anyway for lunch or whatever, but again, that's the tricky part, identifying which would and which wouldn't. Stephanie was asked if she saw anything out of the ordinary when she left to go to lunch. She told me at about 10:20, she remembers they were driving north on Pierce and they observed Chris Morris in a small red compact car, which she described as a probe. She stated Chris was driving out of the teacher's parking lot and described he was dressed in all black and had a green beret hat on and sunglasses. So this is 10:20 a.m. Stephanie was asked if she knew any members of the Trenchcoat Mafia. She stated in her freshman year she knew a few of the members, Tad Bowles and Chris Morris, but she hasn't really paid much attention to the group and doesn't really know much about them. Does that sound legitimate? I asked Stephanie if she went to the prom and after party. She stated her date was Ryan Wagenhout. Stephanie asked if she saw Eric or Dylan at the prom or after prom. She stated she did not. Stephanie also was asked if she observed 2 large duffel bags or sports bags in the cafeteria, one blue, the other orange-red. She advised me she did not see those bags. So is this her just trying to fly under the radar? And I can't help but wonder, is she providing an alibi for Chris Morris? This is curious. Let's see if her friends that she claimed she went to lunch with match her account. So this is a May 19th report with Kendra Fagler. The lead was to determine Kendra's whereabouts during fifth period, as records reflect she has this period free, coincidentally. During my telephone interview with her on April 19th, she told me she was at home eating lunch on April 20th. She stated she had arrived at home at approximately 11 o'clock and tried to return to school, but had run into numerous students who told her what occurred and told her to turn around and go home. She did, and then contacted her parents to let them know she was just fine. Kendra told me she had not seen anything prior to her leaving the school on this date, and that was suspicious or drew her attention. She did not know Harris or Klebold, not heard anything since the event that would assist this investigation. You know, that's quite curious. That's quite curious. Because Plank is stating that they left after third period. So fourth period, they left at 10:10 for lunch. She left with her friends, Kendra and Lacey. Kendra Fagler, Lacey Veach. She stated they went to lunch in Southwest Plaza. But Kendra's stating she went home and she did not report being with anybody. Did no officers double check this discrepancy of Stephanie Plank? Let's look at what Lacey Veach has to say. So this was May 20th. I asked Lacey if she could tell me whereabouts during fifth hour. Lacey stated that she and Kendra Fagler and Stephanie Plank were in her car pulling into the teacher's parking lot at 11:40 a.m. when they saw Chris Morris leaving the teacher's parking lot. So she's stating that Chris Morris was leaving at 11:40 a.m.? Well, why are all these discrepancies? Then a couple seconds later, Mr. Capera stopped them, told them to leave because there was a shooting. They left, never went back. I asked Lacey what Chris Morris was wearing. She stated that he had on his beret and was driving his old beat-up black car. I asked Lacey if she could provide any further information. She stated she didn't see anything else. Okay, so we have three different accounts from these three different people. Kendra didn't even say she was with Stephanie or Lacey, which is weird. I mean, were these ever followed up on? Did anybody notice these discrepancies? I mean, they seem kind of strange. If this mother's account here, if Lisa McKenna's account of these students celebrating and high-fiving each other in Stephanie Plank's driveway at 6:30 p.m., that is strange. Huh. Now, make of this what you will. The only other references to Stephanie Plank is in this Washington Post article, May 4th, 1989, by Lorraine Adams, Columbine's Vow, We Will Go On. And again, some people believe that perpetrators might get a kick out of injecting themselves into media. Other people claim that they wouldn't want to expose or draw attention to themselves. But here's an excerpt from this. Many students echoed the feelings of Stephanie Plank, a junior who was driving back to school from lunch on April 20th and thought she was seeing a fire drill. She didn't mention that in her account. For her, Columbine stirs up declarations of affection and pride that seem to have been intensified by the attack. Columbine is my school, she said Sunday night. I want to finish there. I feel like it's where I was born and raised. It is curious. Many students and their parents remained uneasy. I think we should have waited a little longer, said one girl entering the school who did not want to give her name, just to recuperate a little more. Another young man who said he was afraid to give his name said, I don't feel safe anywhere right now. All the precautions they're supposed to be taking, like checking IDs and letting us in only one entrance. If someone comes in carrying a lot of guns, what good is checking their ID? Interesting point. Why are they checking IDs? Are they afraid that other students that were involved might come? I mean, I don't know. Again, there's just so many unanswered questions here. All right, moving on to point 16 in the comings and goings. Lieutenant James Smith, Boulder PD SWAT, document 8305. At about 11:30 p.m., we overheard radio traffic that 4 or 5 persons in uniform had made an unescorted entry through the east entry door. Several minutes later, we observed 4 people walk out of a door on the northwest side of the school. All 4 were wearing jumpsuits and ATF markings. We were asked to contact the individuals and find out who they were. What the heck? That's weird. This happened at 11:30 p.m. That's crazy. If this was some kind of top secret covert op, would other possible shooters or accomplices take the uniforms of whatever agencies were there and make their getaway that way? I know that's crazy movie talk, but... All right, point 17, Eric Carlin, document 7451. Homeowner in Klebold's neighborhood. On Saturday, April 17th, he heard gunshots coming from the area of Deer Creek Canyon Park, a.k.a. Denver Mountain Park, very close to homes. He yells for the shooter to knock it off and thinks no more of it. Until April 26th, when he notices a white male, late 20s or early 30s, looking for something in the same area. He thinks it might be the spent shell casings and is suspicious enough to take down a license plate number. According to police, the vehicle is registered to, they give this guy's name, wow, white male, 150 pounds, 6 foot, blonde, 34 years old. Does he have anything to do with the shooting? There's no indication that he does, but why would he suddenly feel the need to gather up the spent shell casings? And why are there redacted areas in Carline's statement? Most odd. And another point here, Bruce Lebsack's report, page 13,312, backing up Ashley Pimley, who stated that Stephanie Lesback's dad saw that green minivan with a bunch of trenchcoat mafia members around it. So on 13,312 is the dad here, his observation. He witnessed 6 or 7 black-clad males behind a green minivan at 8 o'clock. It was parked on the south side of West Polk Avenue at the corner of South Pierce Street. And this document is actually missing from the reports published here. Huh. Weird. And now referencing Barbara Karnakus's report, document 7523, at about 7:30 a.m. she saw a group of 5 to 6 males standing at the corner of Pierce and First south of the street. They are dressed in black. One looked older, mid-20s with short blonde hair. 2 of them sitting in a large backpack. So it seems like a lot of individuals saw this random group of trenchcoat mafia type individuals. Some commenters here, I used to think it was strange how Karakusis was the only one who reported this group when there were likely a number of cars in the area. However, Thomas, 13,571, and Lebsack's reports give it more credibility. Also, a report by Tammy Solano Gonzalez states that she saw Klebold and 3 other males looking into the trunk of a small tan car at 7:45 a.m., page 13,206. While the location is given Columbine and Pierce, she later stated it was Polk and Pierce. And this tan car also matches those other testimonies about a tan car following a black BMW. It seems like all these witnesses who witnessed these vehicles with trenchcoat mafia type members and possibly Eric and Dylan, there's a lot here. This is not 1 or 2 people that could have been mistaken. So you have 4 adults, 2 of them parents, who all saw large groups of black-clad white teenagers right next to the school on the morning of the shooting. Yet another important piece in the puzzle that was discounted by police. Also, Kelly Hendricks, page 847, at 11:10 a.m., he saw 2 individuals in trench coats exiting a small car in the parking lot. Huh. Okay, here's a curiosity. The Real Columbine, May 14th, 2000, KMGH broadcast. At 3:48 in the broadcast, so this is at 3 minutes, 48 seconds, a reporter stated, "We've just had a very interesting twist. Police just came out and told us that a carload of people left Columbine High School and was followed by a carload of people that apparently possibly had some weapons. Couple more curiosities here. 6:15 a.m., Justin Kem saw Klebold talking to Dykeman at the AMF bowling alley by Federal and Bellevue. Document 6710. And Justin Kem's report's also curious. Regarding his interview, May 24th, I asked Justin if he could tell me where he had been during his 5th hour class on the day of the shooting. Justin stated that he ditched his classes after first hour and was never at school that day. I asked Justin what class he had been in his first hour. Justin stated he had been in his bowling class at the AMF bowling alley at Federal and Bellevue. The class started at 6:15 a.m. I asked Justin if he knew Harris or Klebold, and he stated that when he got to class, he saw Dylan talking to Nate Dykeman near the front doors, but didn't remember seeing him after about 7 or 7:10 a.m. I asked Justin if he saw Eric. He stated no. So this is a guy who just ditched his class. Now again, if he ditches his classes regularly, but if this is one of the only times he ditched his classes, that would be more curious. 7:05 p.m., Trenchcoat Mafia associate Frank Zerger notices Harris bending over the trunk of his car in the parking lot. He appears to be with another male, described as a tall, slender, black pants, black waist-length jacket, page 7413. Why would Zerger report this? And of course, Zerger's tale that at 11:10 a.m. he left campus for lunch, another coincidence, went to Brian Sargent's car, which was parked in his space in the senior lot, arriving at 11:15 a.m. He, Sargent, and Nicole Dickey drove to the Burger King near the Cooper 7 Theater. And of course, there's some problems verifying that tale. At 7:15 a.m., Abigail Bowles sees Harris in the cafeteria with an unknown male. Page 6160. Then, of course, 7:20 a.m., Sarah Roseberry observed 3 camouflage-clad males, Upper North Hall, page 4210. 7:30, while driving near Bellevue, Sherilyn McLean sees a male in a trench coat and wrap-around sunglasses. Document 13,344. Between 7:30 and 8 a.m., large group of black-clad high school-aged males spotted on the corner of South Pierce and West Polk. They are clustered around various vehicles, and at least 2 of them are wearing trench coats. Several are sitting on large, dark-colored backpacks. Document 7523, 9834, 13,206, 13,312, 13,571. 9 a.m., a witness sees a weird, suspicious student using one of the school's payphones. He is wearing black sunglasses, a long black coat, and a black backpack. She picks him out of a photo lineup. 2723. 9:35 a.m., local resident Meg Beck sees a black-clad teenager sitting under a tree near coal mine. He is wearing a trench coat and appears to be a lookout. Page 13,015. Wow, this is all adding up quite crazily. I mean, this is just madness. 10:40 a.m., about a block from the school, a construction worker sees 4 teenagers in a black BMW, closely followed by a tan sedan holding 2 more. He later identifies the BMW as Klebold's. Rocky Mountain News, April 23rd, 1999. 11 a.m., Lucas Milne observes Robert Perry talking to some friends in the cafeteria. Document 5623. 11:10 a.m., a parent sees Klebold drive his black BMW into the parking lot with a passenger. 7533. Kelly Hendricks notices 2 individuals in trench coats exiting a small car in the parking lot. Page 847. Candace Cushman sees 2 males in trench coats sitting near the faculty lounge. Document 2795. Wow. Seeing this timeline all laid out like this is just bizarre. 11:10 to 11:15, Harris Klebold and a third unfamiliar man are seen entering the cafeteria. The man is wearing a white t-shirt and blue jeans and is later identified by one witness as an associate of Mark Maines. Documents 829 to 834 and then 1159 to 1160. Jennifer Small sees one of Klebold's friends come in through the main entrance with a heavy black duffel bag. He is wearing a black trench coat and camouflage pants. Document 2185. 11:15 a.m. Also, Patrick Vassar sees 4 or 5 black-clad individuals walking away from the main entrance. They are all wearing trench coats except for one who is wearing camouflage pants. Page 4691. Jason Brem notices a round-faced male in a trench coat leaning against a tree by the upper west entrance with a black nylon bag at his feet. Document 719. 11:20 a.m. A witness sees Harris and another male in a trench coat walking near their equipment building. The other male is described as big and fat with dark hair. Document 1167 to 1168. 4 or 5 individuals in black trench coats are seen walking toward the cafeteria. Document 1194. Adam Campbell sees Harris in the parking lot with 2 or 3 other males. Document 732. Right before the shooting, Elisa Owen witnesses a heavy-set male in the parking lot. He is wearing a trench coat and camouflage pants. Document 3982. Stephanie Wagner hears an explosion and sees Harris talking to Brooks Brown at the top of the stairs. Brown goes down the steps and Harris shoots into the main entrance. Document 1255. This seems to happen almost at once. So did Brown actually see him shooting as he left? And is that what he's hiding, not actual involvement? After the first shots, Nancy Lindsay notices a male in blue jeans walking toward the school with a duffel bag. She makes eye contact with him and he smiles at her. Document 979 to 980. I mean, that is bizarre. I mean, this is just things that don't add up here. So a couple of more bizarre oddities here in the previous days. April 10th, during lunchtime, Mark Taylor sees Harris Klebold and 6 of their friends goose-stepping into the cafeteria with army bags. CRTF, November 6, 2000. 2 witnesses see Joseph Stair walking away from the school in trenchcoat garb. Document 761 to 762 and also 5707. April 11th, a passerby sees 6 or 7 boys testing an explosive at Harriman Lake Park. Quincy and Kipling. At least 2 of them are wearing camo. Within 60 seconds of the explosions, the boys and their setup are gone. The same group is later seen talking about detonating something at the school. Document 13,517. April 13th, after school, a woman notices several males wearing black trench coats or dusters in the area of the building. She also sees a black BMW in the park's lot. Document 13,536. April 17, on prom night, a parent allegedly witnesses 2 black-clad individuals running back and forth between the gym and the back of the school. Document 7015. We went over that earlier. April 18th, on Sunday afternoon, Michael Webb and his mother see a male in a black trench coat or duster walking away from the school. His coat is weighted down and he appears to be concealing a heavy object. This is April 18th, just 2 days prior. Document 9016 and 13,623. April 19th, 10:30 a.m., 2 students observe Harris and another black-clad male walking away from the area of the diversionary bombs. Harris warns one away from the area. According to these witnesses, the other male is too short to be Klebold. Page 14,970 to 14,975. At 3:25 p.m., teaching interviewee Barbara Larson passes a large group of students on her way in. At least 2 of them are wearing black dusters. She hears them say, "We got it all set up for tomorrow. When do we detonate?" 13,300. This is the day before 3:25 p.m. Very curious. I mean, all of this is just beyond curious. Now, Dave Searle's account is really curious. Page 19,977 and 13,517. Passerby Dave Searle stated that the boys at the park had plywood shielding. So this is April 11th. Had plywood shielding barriers to protect themselves. As he passed by, 4 of the boys stood in front of the barriers so as to hide them from view. All of the boys also turned around to hide their identities, with the exception of one who had punkish, bleached blonde hair and dark eyebrows. Additionally, Searles noted that all of the boys were tall. Again, just all of these Trenchcoat Mafia members happened to be very tall, except for Brian Sargent. And even Eric Harris. Also, a little bit more expanding. Barbara Larson saw 5 to 8 kids huddling near the main entrance. Most of the boys in the group were tall, and one of them had white, punked-out hair and black eyebrows. Again, this matches Dave Searles' description. Again, she heard them discussing the detonation of something on April 20th. As she walked by, they shushed each other, with one of them saying, "She didn't hear me," and another saying, "Oh, she's just a visitor." I mean, I don't know what to make of this. This is all beyond bizarre. Just absolutely beyond bizarre. So believe it or not, we are making a dent, but we're still close to the tip of the iceberg when it comes to examining the anomalies in the Columbine case. Nothing is seemingly matching the narrative on the idiot box. The so-called official narrative of today does not match any of the reports at the time. Why is that? I will leave the Mindshock listeners to answer that. Leave your own comments, questions, theories, debunkings in the comment section. If you want to support Mindshock, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast requests. You can also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys